Did you know? A cutscene in the Broken Steel expansion of Fallout 3 featured an underground subway called the Presidential Metro. However, the train that players ride isn't a true train. Using the game's creation kit, players can see that the train car is a piece of equipment rigged on an NPC's head. The NPC runs through the metro at a high speed, achieving the same effect as a train. The series has other secrets that can't be found in-game. Two of Fallout New Vegas's unused NPCs are a merchant named Tom Dooley and Kevin Hargrove. Kevin would hire out his Brahmin Betsy as a companion to the player. Betsy would have been useless in combat, but have a high carrying capacity, making her a useful pack mule. However, if the player slept while traveling with Betsy, she would return to Kevin's farm and any items she was carrying would appear in Tom's inventory. Though cut from the final game, the NPC Rotface will still reference the dubious nature of Tom's goods. New Vegas also contains two odd unused enemies. The first is a massive fire-breathing gecko named Gojira, who would terrorize Camp McCarran, and second is a radioactive tumbleweed inspired by stories of tumbleweeds absorbing radiation. The only way to give tumbleweeds the radioactive status in-engine was to program them as enemies. However, this led to issues with the game's loading and rendering and had to be dropped. The perk In Shining Armor from New Vegas's Dead Money DLC is supposed to grant players a defensive bonus against energy weapons while wearing metallic armor or sunglasses. However, due to a coding error, the perk is unable to trigger, rendering it completely useless. An icon for a cut quest called 20 Leagues Under the Sea can be found in Fallout 4's data, and unused assets suggested would have involved the underwater Vault 120. Unused dialogue in one of the Institute's terminals indicates that the faction was somehow involved with the quest, while another shows Institute scientists beginning development on synthetic fish. Some NPCs in-game will mention a giant ghoul whale named Ol Peg that is never encountered, but may have been related to this cut quest. Several skeletons for similar giant whales can be found washed up on the shores of the island in Far Harbor, and other unused textures in Far Harbor suggest that the expansion once included giant armored squids. Fallout 3 was also planned to have a surgery minigame where players would have to manually cauterize their wounds while their characters screamed in pain. This was cut because it slowed the game's pacing down too much. There's a history of censorship in the Fallout franchise. It was possible to kill child characters in Fallouts 1 and 2, which gives the player the child killer reputation. However, it is impossible to kill children in the UK and German versions of the game, rendering the reputation inaccessible in those regions. The image representing the child killer title was changed during Fallout 2's development, but resurfaced in 2010 when artist Brian Menz included it in his portfolio. About the image, Menz said, "This image was unused and the only Vault Boy image to ever be cut from Fallout 2. How do you make an illustration of child killer and keep it from being offensive? Anyway, for some reason, I thought this was the least offensive way to do it." Additionally, gore was removed from the German version of Fallout 3. However, it was possible for Germans to simply buy the uncut Austrian version of Fallout 3, which included a full German translation. The player can become addicted to several chemicals throughout the series, though each game before Fallout 4 was censored in Germany to remove addiction-related imagery. The UK versions of the early Fallout games changed the word drug and addiction to chem and craving. Chem later became the series' standard word for drug. Morphine was originally going to be an item in Fallout 3, but the Australian Classification Board insisted that Bethesda remove all references to real-world drugs. As a result, Bethesda renamed morphine Med-X, a change that stuck across all regions. Interestingly, the editor ID for Med-X is still morphine in the final release of Fallout 3. The Fat Man mini-nuke launcher in the 3D Fallout games is a reference to one of the atomic bombs dropped in Japan during World War II. The Japanese versions of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas renamed the weapon Nuka Launcher to avoid controversy. Interestingly, the Little Boy modification for the Fat Man in New Vegas, which was also named after one of the atomic bombs, did not have its name changed in Japan. The Fallout series is well known for its Easter eggs and references to pop culture. Pickman's Gallery and Dunwich Borer's Quarry from Fallout 4 and the Dunwich Building from Fallout 3 are named after the stories by horror author H.P. Lovecraft, Pickman's Model, and the Dunwich Horror. A skeleton can be found behind a brick wall next to wine bottles labeled Amontillado in the Minuteman's Castle, an allusion to the Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. The player can encounter several pop culture references if they take the Wild Wasteland trait in New Vegas. One of the more interesting is the body of a man named Johnny next to a table with 5 ace cards on it. This is a nod to the Zyborn clock, a cancelled video game project by members of the Something Awful forums. The game's convoluted storyline and main character Johnny 5 Aces gained notoriety and became a popular in-joke on the forum. The player's butler Codsworth recognizes several of the names players give their character and will speak them aloud. These include a variety of normal names, swears, and several references to pop culture like Snake Plissken, Marty McFly, Indiana Jones, and Rick Deckard. Fallout 4's Diamond City features a noodle shop run by a robot named Takahashi who asks his customers, "Nani?" A line identical to a Japanese noodle chef in the film Blade Runner. In the Japanese dub of the game, Takashi was voiced by Resident Evil series creator SHINJI MIKAMI. MIKAMI also created the studio Tango Gameworks, which is owned by Bethesda parent company ZeniMax Media. The series has several other interesting facts about its voice talent. At the beginning of Fallout 3, the player briefly controls their character as a baby. The baby voices were provided by Jake Howard, the son of game director Todd Howard. Other children in the game were voiced by the children of producer Luke Lafferty and lead designer Emil Pagliarulo. New Vegas's radio DJ Mr. New Vegas was inspired by and voiced by entertainer Wayne Newton, also known as Mr. Las Vegas. Actress Linda Carter plays the character Magnolia in Fallout 4, and performs several songs that Carter wrote herself for the role. These 5 songs are notable, as the rest of the game's soundtrack is licensed tracks, besides its ambient music. According to voice casting and production company Blindlight, the first actor considered for the role of President John Henry Eden in Fallout 3 was former US President Bill Clinton, though he ultimately turned down the role. In a 2009 episode of the Ellen DeGeneres talk show, actor Matthew Perry gave Ellen an Xbox 360 with a copy of Fallout 3 that he'd signed. Perry said, "I played this video game so often that I injured my hand so severely that I had to go to a hand doctor and get injections. I'm not affiliated with this game at all. I just love it, but I signed it so it looks like I created it." In response, Bethesda and Obsidian reached out to Perry and offered him the role of Benny in Fallout New Vegas. Interestingly, Perry's Friends co-star Courtney Cox briefly worked at Bethesda in the 1980s, though it's unknown what position she filled. Bethesda aren't afraid to reference their own properties either. Prior to the release of Fallout 3, Bethesda commissioned the creators of Penny Arcade to make a tie-in comic to promote the game. Titled One Man and a Crate of Puppets, the unnamed main character was a survivor from Vault 77 who engaged in violent exploits alongside a hand puppet. A Vault 77 jumpsuit can be found in Fallout 3 alongside a holotape that describes the comic's main character. Another reference is the chime that sounds after the Fat Man nuclear launcher is fired. This sound is actually a recording of the lunchroom bell at the Bethesda offices. While creating a character in Fallout New Vegas, the player is asked to interpret a series of Rorschach inkblot tests. Some fans joked that one of the inkblots resembled 2 bears high-fiving, and even modded the game to include this as a possible answer. The game's Honest Hearts expansion included a minor NPC named 2 bears high-fiving as a nod to the joke. During a trailer for Fallout 4's creation kit, Bethesda previewed a suit of special horse-themed armor as a self-deprecating jab at the poorly received horse armor DLC for Elder Scrolls 4: Oblivion. Fallout 4's development took over 6 years, and began before Bethesda had even completed their expansions for Fallout 3. This was longer than the 4 years it took to make Fallout 3 and the 18 months Obsidian Entertainment were given to make Fallout New Vegas. Boston was made the location for the game due to the numerous references to it in Fallout 3. This included a quest called The Replicated Man, which involves a synth that escaped the Boston area with the help of the Railroad. Both the Railroad and the synths would become integral parts of Fallout 4's storyline. Members of Bethesda's team were spotted scouting Boston as early as 2012, and went to great lengths accurately recreating parts of the area. This included the famous red seat in the bleachers of Fenway Park, and in-universe versions of real buildings like MIT, Walden Pond, and the Old State House. Another location players can visit is called the Prost Bar. The bar appears to be based on the bar in the sitcom Cheers. The bar's location on the map lines up with the real-world Bull and Finch pub, now known as Cheers Beacon Hill, which was used in the sitcom for the bar's exterior shots. Funnily enough, Prost is also the German word for cheers. Given its location north of Concord, the fictional Sanctuary Hills settlement appears to be located in what is today the Minuteman National Historical Park. Using this information and the area of the bomb crater in the glowing sea, it's possible to roughly determine the location of the nuclear explosion from the game's intro sequence. Comparing the in-game map with a real-world map, the bomb appears to have detonated south of modern-day Framingham, Massachusetts. There's one small reference to this that's easy to miss in the game. A terminal entry in an abandoned factory reads, "They must have missed the city with the big one. Framingham's gone from what little I heard on the radio before it went quiet." Prior to the release of Fallout 4, a fan named Gator Machete Jr. attempted to pre-order a copy of the game by mailing Bethesda a box of 2,240 bottle caps, a tongue-in-cheek reference to the currency used in the Fallout games. Bethesda's community manager contacted Gator Machete Jr. to say that they would honor their pre-order and send him a copy of the game, but only because they were the first person to pre-order with bottle caps. In 2016, a Reddit user named Nuge47 made a post expressing their appreciation for the Fallout series. They explained how playing Fallout 4 helped them get through a bad time in their life following the passing of their father. After Nuge47's older brother also passed away, Bethesda mailed them a care package with a handwritten letter to let them know that they plan to memorialize their brother as an NPC in the game's upcoming DLC. Bethesda stayed true to their word, which led to the inclusion of the NPC Evan in Fallout 4's Nuka World expansion. Did you also know that development of the 2016 Doom reboot took so long that one developer had 4 children during its production? For more facts, check out the Did You Know Gaming video on Doom 2016. And if you like playing as a guy in a funny helmet, you'll enjoy watching a guy in a helmet play himself throughout the very funny Magneto saga.